All right, everybody, this is the review for homework 3. So I want to point out a few things about homework 3 before we begin. The first thing is I mentioned here, these are our problems first out of the book. So when we're pulling problems out of the book, we're looking for the page numbers on the book itself. I also screenshotted and put the problems on here. So you actually don't even need to go into the book. But for your own reference, if you're looking for these, they're on page 26 through 28 of the book. But if you're looking in a PDF viewer or you're looking online, it'll often give you another set of page numbers for the document. So just make sure you're looking for the numbers on the book pages within the document. So that's my note here. We're going to go, let's move ahead with that and begin. I'm going to move through these relatively quickly here since we have this film, so we have the luxury of being able to, pause and review bits here and there. So I do want to move through them relatively quickly. So let's go ahead and start off with number 3. So looking at the assignment here, number 3 is about a block of homes in a suburban neighborhood. We are looking at 20 households. So 20 households will be our in, and then we're looking for the number of children in each of the homes. And we have a list of data here as follows. So what we want to do is make a frequency table and a histogram. Within that frequency table, we do want to do a percentage calculation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring us over to the whiteboard where we can give this a go. So I'm not going to copy the data over since we have it on the assignment, but remembering from our lecture what I think is best practice for doing these is to actually manually cross off each data point as you use it. So you don't miss any values or double use them or anything. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'll start with number 3, our first one here. So we're talking about number of children in suburban homes. So I'll go ahead and just put number of children here to remind us what we're doing. We're looking in 20 homes, so our in is equal to 20. We're going to need that for our percentage calculations. Let's go ahead and make a table. So remember, when we're making a frequency table, what we're really doing is taking a look at one variable. So variable x in this case will be number of children. So I'll go ahead and put an x here, and I'll also put a number of children. So variable x, and then we're going to look at y. Y is going to be a frequency. Frequencies. Let's go ahead and get these marked here, and then we're going to do a percentage calculation. Then we're going to look at percent, and then we're going to create a histogram. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. If we look at the data set, the data ranges from 0 children all the way up to 6 children. So the first thing we want to do is list all of these values. Remember, even if one of these values is not present in the data set, which we do have here, you still include it when you list off all possible values. We want to know all possible values within the range of scores. So I'll go ahead and do that here. We have from 0 to 6. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0 to 6, and then frequency. So this is what you would do. You would go back. Let's actually hop back over to the homework here. Since we have the data set here, you could do something like, I'll go ahead and mark on here if you wanted to start off with the zeros, for example. We want to find out how many households have 0 children. You would go through and you would mark, right? Okay, here's 1 0, 2 zeros, 3 zeros, 4 zeros, right? You would go ahead and do that for every value in the set. So we have 4 zeros. We have 4 zeros on the set. We have 5 ones. We have 7 twos. We have 2 threes. 1 4 0 5s. Remember, we have 0 of a value. We don't skip it. We do include it. And then we have 1 household with 6 children. And then something that you might want to do here as a check for yourself is to sum up to see if you have all 20 data points here. So if we do some quick math, we learn that we do, in fact, have a total of 20. Remember that the symbol here, this is an uppercase sigma, Greek letter sigma, and that means to sum all of your data. So we'll be using that in the future here, and since we have an in of 20, we're going to take each of these values divided by 20. And then we're going to derive percent from these calculations. And again, part of my mess here. So I've been using this drawing pad for a while now, and even still, the whiteboard work is much better than this, but please do ask if you need any clarification on what these are. My handwriting's messy anyways. So what we're doing here is we're getting proportions. We're getting what proportion of each of these scores make up this data set, and we're going to convert these into percent. So we get proportions here, and then we can turn these into percents. And then another way that we can check our work is to make sure that all data is accounted for. Our percentage column should sum up to be 100%. In this case, that's exact. If we end up with a data set in which we have some decimals, it might not be exact, but it should be pretty close, right? Within rounding 99.99, rounding up in cases will be acceptable, right? So here's our frequency table. So we've taken that data set, we've crunched it now into an organized table where you can report percentages. And now what we want to do is create a histogram and then describe the data. So let's go ahead and get a new slide here. Let's make one of these histograms. Let's make it better than that. All right. A little bit better. So remember that we're working with a standard graph here where we have an x and a y axis. So x is going to be our variable of interest, in this case, number of children. And y is going to be, for frequency tables, it's always going to be frequency. We're looking at the frequency, right? That one variable. So we need each of our axes to represent the range of values that we have for both of these things. So for example, for a number of children, the lowest number of children that was reported was 0. And it went all the way up to 6. So we need 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for frequency, the most frequently occurring value here had a frequency of 7. So we need 7 marks over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I got an extra mark here, but that's okay. Then we're just going to go ahead and create a bar over here, over each of these values, to indicate how frequently each of them occurred. So let's start with 0. For 0, we had 4 cases of homes with 0 children. For 1, we had 5. For 2 children, we had 7 cases, 7 occurrences. For 3 children, we had, I believe we had 2 of those. All right, so I'll put a bar in here for 2 or 4. We had only 1 for 5. We had 0. So remember, you include it, but we just skip over it, right? Move on to 6, where we had 1. So then the next question is, how do we describe the shape of this data? Well, if we were to put a curve in here, we have a little bit of tail, right, where it trails off over here on the positive end. So remember my trick here. I think about the tail that you can grab which one. It's kind of flat that you could reach in and grab with your hand. That's on the positive side of this axis here. So we'd call this a positive skew. Right, a positive skew, meaning that there are a few scores on the positive end that are kind of pulling the distribution out, right? Pulling the distribution. So that's number 3, right? Okay, so set 1, number 3 from our homework. So let's go ahead and hop back over to the homework document and read the next one here. So the next one we have is number 5. These are scores on a test of sensitivity to smell, taken by 25 chefs attending a national conference, an interesting variable. Still a psychological variable, right? Psychology includes our senses and perception, how our senses work in the brain. And then we have some data points here. This is a grouped frequency distribution, and groups are provided down here in the question. So we're being asked to make a frequency table and a histogram, make a group frequency table using the intervals given here. Then we'll make a histogram, and we're going to describe the shape of this distribution as well. So let's go ahead and hop over to our little whiteboard again, and let's give this one a try. So this one is number 5, right? So this is is a chef smell sensitivity test. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our variables in. So we have our variable x, which is going to be smell. We have our variable y, which is the frequency. In this case, we're going to do a percentage calculations, and we're going to report the total percentages here. So intervals were given for us to use. We notice the rate of the data set's a little bit larger than what we've been working with, but it gives us these intervals, these groups to work with. So we're working in groups of 10. All right, remember that a grouped frequency table should have at least 5 categories. This will be on the smaller end. And let's go ahead and get the frequencies in here. So again, I recommend when you're working these out by hand that you go on to the document itself and mark which data you've already counted to your frequencies here. But we should have something that looks like this, that looks a little bit like this, all right. And we had, in this case, an N of 25. And so we're going to take each of these frequencies. We're going to take 2 divided by 25. We're going to take 6 divided by 25. We're going to get proportions for each of these here. And then we're going to turn them into percent. Remember, we have that little calculation that looks something like percent is equal to frequency over N times 100. We're just getting up a portion of how frequently each occurs out of the total number of data points, and then we're turning that proportion into a percent. So let's see what we get here. We should get some values that look something like this. And we're going to multiply each of these by 100 to get our percentages. So we have 8% here, we have 24% here, 24, 32, 24, and 12. If we add this all together, we should magically get 100. Likewise over here for frequency, it's always a good idea to say sum these up to make sure that you're getting what you think you should be getting, right? So in this case, we do have a sum of 25 here. Let's go ahead and make this into a histogram. Let's get some axes over here. So we have our y-axis will be frequency, our x-axis will be that smell sensitivity value or variable. And what we need on our axes, so we have 5 categories and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all right, so 5 intervals here. And then we have frequencies occurring up to 8. So we need, let's space it out a little more. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these marks here. So I'll go ahead and put the labels in here. It'll look a little messy, right, since it's a little small here. But we have 52, 59, 60 to 69, 78, 79, 80 to 89, and 90 to 99. All right, and then frequency here. There we have it. Okay, so remember rules of histograms. We need bars that center over each of the tick marks that we've made, and then we need our bars to touch each other. So we had 2 scores in this category. We had 6 scores in this next category. So the bars are touching each other because of the type of variable it is. So I'm in the 72, 79 category. We have 8 of them here, right? 80 to 89. We have 6 again, and then for 90 to 99, we have 3 over here, all right? Okay, so now we can take a look at the distribution and what do we think? How does this look? I would say this looks relatively normal. This looks, yeah. Remember, normal means that most scores cluster in the center with very few scores out on the ends, very few outliers. We have a pretty restricted set of scores here, right? We only have 5 different intervals that scores can belong to, so we're getting a pretty limited view of this data. But from what we can see, given these intervals, this looks to be relatively normal. So let's go ahead and give the next one a try. Let's go read about it on the homework. So we're on to number 13 here. It's an organizational psychologist asked 20 employees in a company to rate their job satisfaction on a 5-point scale, 1 being very unsatisfied, 5 being very satisfied. The ratings are as follows, and we have the data here. We're making a frequency table, a histogram, and describing the data yet again. So this is not a group frequency table, back to just a standard frequency table here. So let's go ahead and give this one a try. So this is number 13. So we're talking about job satisfaction. And we have an N equal to 20 here. That's equal to 20. Let's go ahead and get our data going. So we have variable X. We'll call that job satisfaction. We have Y, which is our F, our frequency percentage calculation, and then percentages. So let's go ahead and get these in the mix here. So the job satisfaction scale went from 1 to 5. So we want to get numbers 1 to 5 in here. And then if we tally up the count of the frequencies of each of these, we should get something that looks like this. Right, since we're working with a set of 20, if we do our percentage calculation, we're going to take each of these divided by 20. We'll get proportions here, multiply them by 100 to get our percentages. So we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.2, 1.1. All right, so 10%, right? So these are all by 10%, 20%, 40%, 20%, and 10%. So of course, again, we can sum these up, make sure that we have all of our data, and we should sum up here to make sure that this is equal to 100. So let's go ahead and graph this one as well using a histogram. So let's try this out. Let's get some axes going here. So job satisfaction ranges from 1 to 5. So we'll have our scores here. So this is X, or job satisfaction. And then over here we have Y, or frequency. And our highest frequency here is 8 as well. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 marks. Okay, and then we just go ahead and plot, right, how many people selected 1 for job satisfaction. We had 2. How many people selected 2? Let's go ahead and make that a little bit bigger so this is not as awkward looking. We had 4 here. And then for 3, we had 8. That seemed to be the most frequent report. We had 4 again. Here, 4 here, and then 2, 4, 5, all right. So what about the shape here? The shape looks relatively normal. In fact, this is perfectly normal, meaning that both sides are completely symmetrical, with the highest point being in the middle. So this one's perfectly normal. Okay, so there we have it for homework 3 review. As always with these assignments, be sure to let me know if you have any other questions. All right, see you on the next one.